brand new month. We're now in June 2025. Crazy. The 6th month of the year, so we're exactly halfway through. Now, I have took a trade since, well, it's my first trade of the week and the month, and it was really a shitty trade. It was so bad. It could have been avoided. It was kind of an impulsive decision, me wanting to get into a trade and make money. I make mistakes. I'm a human. Sometimes happens. We're going to document this, and I'm going to go through it and explain why it was so shit and why it could have easily been avoided. And it was just a low probability. You could even say an invalid trade. So yeah, I'm kind of very disappointed in myself for taking that. We got to document it either way. It's only the start of the week. We've got plenty of data to come for the rest of the week and the rest of the month. We've got NFP, of course, this week, so that's going to be a major thing. So yeah, anyway, we're going to break down this trade right now. The weekly open, we gapped up massively from these prices. We closed last week at 32.88, around there. Within the first few hours of the weekly open, we were gapping up towards the 33.16s, just past the 33.17s, and then we started to show exhaustion leading into Asian Open. Now, because us shifting above these minor highs that were made from last week at the 33.04s, like around this area, we saw major exhaustion during the last session, broke back bullish on a minor level on the intraday at least. So in my head, after Asian Open, I'm looking at some retests of the 33.04s. Now, I would have been happy taking these buys had we actually got the lower time frame confirmations, because obviously we've got this minor intraday AOY, which is a good confirmation, but just got to keep in mind it's a minor level, and I would have preferred if we retested at least the 32.90s and took buys off there, because it's a stronger AOY. We're on the 1 minute right now, and I was analysing this for some 1 minute confirmation. So around 30 minutes after the open, we retested obviously the AOY that I just mentioned, and price bounced pretty much immediately, bouncing back up to the 33.13s. Now, no break of structure on the lower time frames at this point. We made a new low after the open, violated these lows. So this is a new low at this point. Despite us actually bouncing off the AOY, we're still bearish. Didn't even break these highs or anything. Around 1.5 hours after the open, we retested the key level again. And this kind of did create a 1 minute double bottom, especially because we rejected so fast and pretty much bounced immediately back up to the 33.08s once we tapped into this key level. Now at this point, I'm counting that as a double bottom, and I kind of impulsively got in at that point. Even though there's no break of structure or anything, there's no indication that we're actually back bullish on the lower time frames yet, at least. So I impulsively got in on that just because it was a double bottom, and obviously the minor intraday confirmations. So that was the first mistake I made. I did not wait for the break of structure. I should have waited for the break of structure. Also, we were approaching almost 2 hours after the open, and my kind of rule is that I don't really want to be entering a trade 2 hours after the open. The first mistake I made was no break of structure, and then the second mistake I made is the fact that we're entering it pretty late. So I should have been apprehensive at the fact that we're pretty late after the open and there's no real confirmations. You see, it would have been different had we actually got the confirmations that we wanted to see, and the timing was a little bit late. I would have made that a little bit of an exception, but I would have kept it in the back of my mind. But the fact that there was no break of structure at this point, that should have raised red flags to me. Anyway, obviously, because we had no indication that we're actually back bullish yet, we just continued back below the key level, making new lows, even violating this low that we had here. So completely invalidating the double bottom at that point, which means at this point we have got no confirmations. Now, something luckily I did, I know we haven't even hit stop loss technically, and there's a reason because of that, because I cut this position way before it even hit stop loss. Once these lows were broken, because I knew I was in a trade that I was in too early, basically. So once these lows were broken and a new low was made, I was out of the position. I closed half. I managed to lose almost half of what I expected to lose. So I didn't even lose 0.5% on this trade. I lost like 0.25%, maybe like 0.35% on this trade. At this point, we literally were 2 hours after the open. If we're breaking new lows 2 hours after the open, it's not a valid setup for me. So yeah, I cut it way before we even got down to here. I cut it once these lows were broken. I was completely out of the position. This was an invalid trade, a low probability trade. It wasn't a trade that I should have been in. I just impulsively made a decision. I saw it rejecting so fast and I was like, oh, I don't want to miss this opportunity. I was thinking emotionally, I wasn't thinking rationally. And sometimes like I've got experience, bro, and I give you guys advice a lot, and I'm like, but at the end of the day, I'm a human. Sometimes I am going to make mistakes. Like I'm not perfect, and I'm going to be totally honest about that. That's why I'm documenting this trade, because like, although I know the right things to do and I've developed the right habits, I'm like, sometimes I am going to make mistakes. I'm not perfect. So yeah, but basically that's our first loss of the week, first loss of the month of June. I've journaled it, explained why it's an invalid trade, explained why it's a lower probability trade, and yeah, we just charge it to the game, move on, wait for a better quality setup, and do not impulsively enter and impulsively react. Think rationally. Need to learn from this. This is what it's about. Made a mistake, learn from it, but thank God we were able to lose far less than I anticipated to lose. So technically, this is a very managed trade and a very managed loss. So I did right by that, but I realistically shouldn't have even been in the trade. You know, there was many indications telling me that this isn't a good trade and I shouldn't be in it. But yeah, I'm gonna take a break now because it's a little bit frustrating and I need to clear my mind and prepare myself for the next trade that's going to be a better position. Catch you guys in a bit.